Live, where news comes first. This is ABC-7 Extra.
Good evening, I'm Maria Garcia. Welcome to ABC-7 Extra. Glad you're with us tonight. We're exactly 1 month away from Pope Francis's historic visit to the border. This is going to be a monumental event, both in terms of meaning and also just in sheer logistics. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of people trying to get a glimpse of the Pope. Hotel rooms in El Paso already booking up, with visitors from around the country and around the world. Customs and Border Protection expecting a big influx of people as well, rerouting commercial traffic. And a big chunk of the border highway will be closed starting the night before. Area school districts are expected to announce this week if they'll cancel classes. UTEP, we know, will be closing the entire campus February 17th. Thousands are expected at the Sun Bowl, where the El Paso Catholic Diocese will provide a live feed of the Pope's Mass from Juarez that day. We're going to be talking about this and all the preparations tonight, and obviously the meaning of this visit. Joining us, El Paso Bishop Mark Seitz and Communications Director for the Diocese of El Paso, Elizabeth O'Hara. You can email us your comments and questions now to ABC-7Xtra at KVIA.com. Call us at 915-496-1775 or tweet me at Maria G. ABC7. Before our discussion, let's get to the latest information. We learned this weekend the diocese will televise the Pope's Juarez Mass at the Sun Bowl, as we told you. Here's our Evan Folan continuing our complete coverage.
As the anticipation grows for the Pope's arrival, many are making plans to witness the historic event. The Sun Bowl is opening up its gates to let people watch the Pope from the big screen, but if you want to go, it's going to cost you. Excitement for the Pope's arrival is growing. Life-size cutouts of the Pope can be found inside churches all across town. This man says it's a way for people to feel closer to the Pope, and it's an opportunity for a keepsake. Come February 17th, those cutouts will be overshadowed by the Pope himself. And if you can't make it across the border, you can catch all the action on the big screen inside the Sun Bowl, but it's going to cost you $15 unless you belong to a parish. He says if people are members of a parish, they'll be able to get a discounted price, bringing their ticket prices down from $15 to $10. But that may be too pricey for some.
So would you spend $15 or $10 with the discount to go see the Pope?
No, I wouldn't. I think that I would watch it on TV instead of going to the Sun Bowl.
While others think it's worth the money.
If you pay $10, well, that's fine. I mean, but I think it's a win-win situation.
And if you're willing to pay the price, he says people will have to go to their own parish where they regularly attend Mass to receive discounted prices.
All right, and joining us now are El Paso Bishop Mark Seitz and Communications Director for the Diocese of El Paso, Elizabeth O'Hara. Thanks for coming in. We appreciate you joining us tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Good evening.
Of course. So Pope Francis will be spending the most time in Ciudad Juarez out of all the Mexican cities he will be visiting. What does this convey? What's the meaning of this, that he'll be spending the most time at the border?
Well, it's interesting, you know, even before the Pope spoke about coming to Mexico, he spoke about coming to Ciudad Juarez and entering into our country through Ciudad Juarez, meaning through into El Paso in that way. This was prior to his visit to the United States last fall. He spoke about his desire really to come in, he said, like a migrant in that way. So it's clear that this region has been on his mind for quite a while.
And, you know, the Pope, Pope Francis, obviously, we know, has a special connection to poor populations around the country. It constantly speaks of their plight. What kind of message do you think will resonate with people here that he'll be bringing?
Well, certainly a lot of us here are very close to our immigrant roots, and so in some way we'll identify, and if it's not our own family, it will be people that we know in the border area. He'll also speak about the violence that has been experienced in Ciudad Juarez, and he brings a message of peace and turning the page from that kind of past, learning that really violence doesn't solve problems. I think the Pope will re-emphasize that for everyone and give us an opportunity for to really say, that was then. This is a new beginning.
I think also in terms of just working together, this is a monumental event that I think has brought El Paso and Ciudad Juarez together. Do you agree, Elizabeth?
I would agree with that. I think that the Pope, and I think this is through a lot of the work that Bishop Seitz has done, has really gotten an idea of who we are here on the border. He knows about the binational Congreso that is held here. He knows about the border mass that takes place up in Sunland Park and in Napra. So he's aware of the fact that while we are in two different countries, we are two cities, we are joined by what we believe. And I think he realizes that there's a lot of cooperation between the two and that this makes this area special. I think that's another reason why we ended up on his radar screen.
Speaking of cooperation, I mean, there needs to be a lot of cooperation to put something like this together. And Juarez officials saying there will be at least 450,000 people from both sides of the border trying to see Pope Francis at the Mass or on the street. I mean, that is a mammoth crowd.
Yes, and I'm wondering if it isn't a low estimate.
You think we're going to top the 500,000 people?
I think we could. Well,
Right.
just about everyone in the northern part of Mexico is certainly going to have this on their mind.
Right.
And if they can come to Juarez for the day, they will, not to mention those who will attempt to cross.
Right. So what does that mean for the El Paso Diocese in terms of preparation?
Well, as I think you mentioned it at the beginning of the newscast, we're a month away now. And so for us, I mean, we kind of, when we were in Philadelphia, I'll give you a little bit of a backstory. We jokingly talked with each other. Wouldn't it be funny if Pope Francis ever came to El Paso? Ha ha ha. Where would we possibly do something like that? 6 weeks later, we're having an actual conversation. He is coming to Juarez, and what are we going to do? And we announced on December the 12th. So where Philadelphia, New York, Washington had months and months to prepare for something like that, we had 60 days. And so I think that we've done a really good job in working with state and federal and local agencies, particularly the city of El Paso has been very gracious, because a lot of times we're asking them to do things in days or by the end of the week that normally would take them months to do.
Like what?
Oh gosh, where do we even begin? There have been a couple of times, well, you mentioned the fact that we're looking at road closures, which right now we can't confirm because there's still a lot of applications that are going in and things that need to be affirmed. But those kind of things, I mean, when you look to shut down just a city, just a little street, that's going to take a little while. What we're looking at would be a little bit larger of a swath along the border highway, and so that's going to take a lot of cooperation, and as you know, there's a lot of different agencies that kind of oversee that area. So
Right.
Bringing everybody to the table together to say, okay, peeps, we've got a lot of eyeballs on us right now. We really need to make this work. What do we need to do? I can honestly say that no agency has ever told us, no, can't be done, not going to happen. They've all said, wow, you've really given us a very long list. Let's get to work. And I think that that's been a really great thing that's come of this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a lot about this experience that has no precedent. The Pope has never come to a border specifically in order to come to a border. That's the reason he's coming here, because of our border region. And so, whereas so many papal trips depend on a precedent of Pope John Paul, who traversed the world during his time, Pope Benedict, who followed that, and now Pope Francis, we don't have so much to fall back on to know how we do this. There are many agencies in our country that are asking those same kind of questions. Take the security apparatus, for instance. We've been having meetings with everyone from El Paso Fire Department and police all the way up to Secret Service, talking about the kinds of preparations that need to be made, because the Pope will be right here on our border.
I mean, literally.
Literally.
Right across the border fence, which is amazing. There were media reports last week that the El Paso Diocese had scrapped plans for a mass with the Pope at the El Paso side of the border fence because of several agencies having concluded there were too many safety concerns about a large crowd near the border. Is that the case?
Well, what they concluded is that the border highway would not be a good place for people to go. It's just too many things that it's not made for people to be walking along. Too many possibilities for injury, and also too difficult to control the inflow and outflow from that place. And you can have situations, as we've heard about in other parts of the world, where crowds pack into an area and there's no outlet, right? There's no place for them to go, and so people end up being trampled and the like. So I think the city has been very concerned about that, and the other agencies that have looked into it.
The border highway is still going to be closed, though, starting the night before, at least a big chunk of the border highway. I mean, I'm sure there's still an expectation, even though no one's overtly encouraging it, and in fact, I think there's people, that's why there are people saying go to the Sun Bowl instead, but I'm sure there's still people who are going to be going to the border highway to get a glimpse.
What we're looking at right now is kind of a bubble around that area. Again, because he is a diplomat, he's a head of state, he is Pope Francis, but he's not here. We still have a responsibility to ensure that he is safe, but so are the people who are on this side. And so there is going to be this bubble that goes around. We have had the discussions about, will people still organically try and flock to the area to get some kind of a glimpse? I believe that bubble is going to be wide enough that people who come down to the border highway are probably not going to be able to see much. And born of that idea was the Sun Bowl celebration.
Mm-hmm. That's right. How many people do you expect at the Sun Bowl? And when will the tickets be available for purchase?
Well, how many people does it hold?
That's a really good question. I don't know.
51,500, I think, is what I've seen.
Right.
And that's what we're hoping for. We really have no idea. Once again, there's no precedent to fall back on here. But I think what some people in that earlier video were not aware of is that this is going to be more than just an opportunity for some people to come together and look on a screen. But this is going to be an event. This is going to be an occasion for the church and certainly anyone who's interested to come together as people of faith and to take part in this event. And we won't be doing it simply passively by watching. We're working on the technology to be able to allow Pope Francis to see us.
Oh, wow.
And to be able also to greet us in a moment there at the Sun Bowl. None of this is completely finalized, but we're very hopeful that that will happen. In addition, we're inviting some people who are well known around the country, well respected, who our people here will enjoy seeing. Once again, with the short timeline, we still don't have a final on it. We know that one particular Catholic singer who's well known and loved, I call him the Cantador del Papa, the singer for the Pope, Tony Melendez, who sang for Pope Francis a couple of times, 2 or 3 times, and I believe for Pope Benedict. He's a man that was born without arms and plays the guitar with his feet.
Wow.
An extraordinary man, great man of faith, and he'll be with us that day, among others whom we can't mention tonight.
Okay, so it sounds like it's going to feel like a concert.
There's going to be a lot of entertainment. We're looking at cultural things. We'll be looking at the entertainment. It's going to be more than a viewing party. And I think somebody earlier had said, you know, I could just stay home and watch it. I think really with what we're looking at and the interest that we're seeing, not just regionally. You know, in my office, we've taken phone calls, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, the Diocese of Brooklyn. Hey, we'd like to come down to El Paso, knowing that they don't have the opportunity perhaps to get some of those papal mass tickets. They want to come to El Paso and celebrate. And something that we were talking about earlier, and to kind of use a religious term, it's not a mass. We're not offering a mass at the Sun Bowl, and I think that's an important thing to distinguish here. It's a celebration of what is happening in Juarez and for Juarez. And for us to be, to use a religious term, in communion with that event. And so we're having a lot of interest from all over the country. So when Bishop says, you know, 51,000 or 50,000, I think there's a really good likelihood that we could have a sellout on our hands.
Wow. Okay, well, we have to take a commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the diocese around the country, what kind of reaction you're getting. Stay with us. You're watching ABC-7 Extra. Remember, you can call us at 915-496-1775. Email us at ABC7Extra@KVIA.com, or you can tweet me at MariaGABC7. We'll be right back. Welcome back to ABC-7 Extra. I'm Maria Garcia. We're talking tonight about the Pope's visit in 1 month exactly. Let's go to Twitter. Rosa tweeting at us, when will the tickets for the Sun Bowl go on sale?
Well, we're expecting to have that probably done sometime this week.
Okay.
Again, we had just kind of finalized many of these contracts that we've been talking about this evening.
Okay.
And so we were rolling that out to the parishes this week to let them know about what was happening insofar as a celebration that we would like for them to be a part of. And we expect to be able to roll out that information tomorrow. We're having our big press conference tomorrow at 11 a.m. So some of
With
these
Mayor
details...
Oscar Lisa, right?
Yes, so some of these details that you're seeking, they're great questions, but I feel like I keep telling you, you're about 12 hours a little early, but yeah, we're expecting this to come out very quickly.
Okay, and from Pat, will communion be distributed at the Sun Bowl? Will the Mass be televised? Yes, will buses be running to the Sun Bowl?
Okay, well, as far as communion, no, communion will not be distributed there.
Because as you said, it's not a Mass.
That's right, it's not a Mass. The Mass will be in Juarez, and we'll be viewing it. It would be like you turned it on at some other place and watched, but certainly very prayerfully we will watch that Mass and take part in that way. Will there be buses to the Sun Bowl? I don't think we can answer that question yet, but we'll be working on facilitating the transportation back and forth.
Okay, let's go to our phone calls. We have Mondo from Clint. Hi, Mondo. What's your comment or your question?
My question is why is there going to be a $10, $15 charge to see the Pope at the Sun Bowl? Is it a Pope for profit situation? Can the bishop or Ms. O'Hara explain to us, are the proceeds going to something beneficial? Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I'm really glad that question came in because I know people will be asking. We'd love to do this for nothing, but it's certainly not for profit. It's just that we have to be responsible also as a diocese, and we have very limited resources that we can draw on. It's a very expensive proposition to rent the Sun Bowl for a day, and they've been very gracious at UTEMP in lowering the costs, but even so, it's very expensive, and this will only be a fraction of our costs.
How much is it costing the diocese to rent the Sun Bowl?
I don't have that number.
Yeah, I don't think we have the number with us.
Okay, we'll ask you at the news conference again tomorrow.
That's a deal. Okay, that's a deal.
All right, let's go to Benny on the east side. Benny, what's your comment or your question?
Yeah, I don't understand why the Bishop of Juarez made the comment that esto es para Juarez, for Mexico, and Estados Unidos ya tuvo lo de él. In other words, Philadelphia already had theirs, the United States already had theirs, yet second collection for the last couple of weeks at Mass, they've been asking for donations to help fund the logistical nightmare in Juarez. It's like having a party and inviting everybody over to your house, and then they come with the gifts, and you say, well, you're not invited. And that's my comment, really. I mean, I kind of felt snubbed, and on the other hand, you know, they're asking for donations at Mass. Thank you.
Well, that comment didn't come from the bishop. It came from a spokesperson. And I don't think it really expressed the attitude of the Diocese of Juarez, because they've been wonderful with us. And as a matter of fact, they've offered us 5,000 tickets to the Mass in Juarez. So we've been working closely with them from the start, and they've been very open and wanting us to take part.
That comment was from a government spokesman, I think.
Oh, was it? Okay.
That's what my understanding of it.
Oh, okay.
Well, if I could just pop in here real quick, I think also that it should be noted that the Diocese of Juarez didn't ask us to host a second collection. We did that at the behest of Bishop Seitz. The costs that they're looking at in Juarez are going to be phenomenal. especially because, again, like us, they've only had a couple of weeks to pull this together. And so, and Bishop, if you want to jump in here on this, you can. The amount of money that was collected during the second collection, and that was held, I believe, last weekend, is really just to help, kind of defer some of their minimal cost. It wasn't something that they said, hey, can you help us with this? We offered as a goodwill gesture.
Right. So it is for the sake of our brothers and sisters. We're just so happy for them that they're having this event, and obviously we're also enjoying it because this, as anyone who lives here knows, is not a region that has two distinct cities. We're really one city that at one point was divided by a border, but still our families live on both sides of the border. Our commerce depends upon people on each sides of the border. We're totally meshed with one another, and certainly when it comes to faith, we're united. So we really are going to be sharing in the joy of what is. We also want to do what we can to support them.
El Paso will get 5,000, or the diocese will receive 5,000 tickets for the Pope's Mass in Juarez. Those tickets will be divided among the parishes based on which church has the biggest average attendances. 5,000, still not a whole lot of tickets, compared to how many people will actually be at the Mass.
True, but I think it will probably be as many as we need, because my guess is, and again, you can only guess about these things, but it's going to be so challenging for people on this side to be able to go to the Mass that I think it's going to limit the numbers considerably. For instance, if in order to do this, people are going to have to take not one day, but probably 3 days. They'll have to go over at least the day before, if not 2 days before, and they'll have to come back at least the day after or a day later, simply because of the pressure on the bridges. Can you imagine? We know what it's like at Christmas time, right? Multiply that by 50 and try to consider what this is going to be like, trying to get across in that same day.
Precisely why Customs is rerouting commercial traffic. Let's go to Bob in the Northeast. Bob, what's your comment or your question?
Why does the Catholic Church claim to be all about the poor when they're charging people $10 and $15 a ticket to go and see the leader of their church? Thank you.
Thank you. Similar question to what?
We're not only all about the poor, but we're also poor. We don't have huge resources of funds. We're putting everything into it that we can. We have a hard time just bringing in the money that we need in order to pay for the services that we provide every year. So this 10 or 15 is really a very small part of the cost. We're also looking for corporate sponsors and so on, but it's a part that we felt we would have to have in order to make this opportunity available. If you go to a concert, if you go to a movie, you're going to spend most of that amount of money today. This will be, I think, an experience that people will long remember if they're able to take part, and they'll consider the money a very small investment.
Let's go to Pat on the west side. Pat, what's your comment or your question?
Will communion be distributed at the Sun Bowl as we watch the Mass? Will the Mass be televised? And will there be buses from various sites throughout the city to facilitate people getting to the Sun Bowl to kind of alleviate some of the traffic mess?
Thank you, Pat. You tweeted at us earlier, and the bishop answered your question. No communion, not a Mass. The Mass obviously will be televised, and they're still working on the bus logistics. Now, let's go to Twitter here. Tara saying, this is a wonderful message that El Paso and Ciudad Juarez is sending to the rest of the country and the world compared to all the negative attention we got before. So changing the narrative that comes out of the border with the Pope visit, definitely changing the narrative of violence, of lawlessness that sometimes is portrayed as the border.
And I think that this is a really big moment for us in the city of El Paso as a result of this visit, for that very reason. When the violence, was really at its height, 7 8 years ago, El Paso ended up getting beaten up as a result as well. Again, because of our close proximity and dependency on one another. Two different cities, but family nonetheless. And so I think that El Paso often found itself painted with that broad brush. Now, in the communications office, and I was telling you this during the break, I'm now dealing with NPR, the LA Times, Good Morning America, World News Tonight, Time Magazine. They are all going to be here, and they all want to tell the story of what happened in Juarez, what's happening today, but what happens in El Paso and who we are. And this is a very important moment for us to be able to show who we are, the makeup of our people, our faith, our Catholicism, and as the bishop said, the turning of the page. That is a very defining moment in Juarez's history, and we ended up feeling that as well. But it is time for us to recognize who we are today and where we are going in the future. And so I think that as we handle the media and as we start to see these stories, providing for them the real El Paso story is going to be very important.
Absolutely, especially with such a bright spotlight on the border. What are you hearing from other dioceses in the United States? How many other Catholic bishops are coming here that you know?
Well, we're still very early in those preparations too. A message just went out to the bishops with all of the arrangements that they would need to make and explaining the steps this last week. So we're waiting. But we do know of a couple of cardinals that plan to come. I probably shouldn't mention names at this point, but I know of an archbishop and several other bishops that are planning to be here. It's a challenge for them also just in terms of their schedule, because once again, it's not a matter of coming in the morning and leaving in the evening. They'll have to spend the better part of a week with us, which we're happy about, but it might be difficult for their schedule.
Okay, we're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, we're going to get to more of your phone calls and tweets. Stay with us. Welcome back to ABC-7 Extra. Let's go to Willie from Central. Want to take a couple more phone calls. Willie, what's your comment or your question?
Hello, I'd like to know if all the tickets for the Sun Bowl sell out for the celebration. Will there be another venue, like say like the Don Haskins Center or maybe the Civic Center downtown?
So it sounds like Willie is pretty confident you'll sell the Sun Bowl.
Thank you, Willie.
Yes. Well, we're very hopeful that that will be a problem. I think, practically speaking, and given the shortness of time, we'd have a difficult time putting together another major celebration. Probably what we'd do at that point is for people who want to gather with others to do it in their parishes. But come to the Sun Bowl. We'll get you in.
Okay, all right. Oh, you just said that on live TV. Let's go to Norma in Segundo Barrio. Norma, what's your comment or your question?
How are you going to do it with the people? Are you going to bus them in shuttles, buses? Where are they going to park? I live in the Segundo Barrio, near Guillen, where they're going to meet. Are they going to use the area to park or what? The traffic is going to be huge. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
One of the big advantages of having the Sun Bowl is that it's away from where some of the street closures will be and so on. And with the University of Texas at El Paso closing that day, one of the things they were thinking about was providing parking, not having all the students needing the parking lot on those days. So a lot of parking will be available just as they would for any football game. And we'll certainly look at whether there's a need for any remote parking in these next days.
Okay, school districts around the city still discussing whether to allow students to take the day off. The district's taking everything from traffic congestion to possible absences into consideration.
Right.
Does the diocese encourage the school districts to close on that day?
It was certainly something that we wanted to call to their attention for the very reasons that you just brought up. As you know, the school districts are paid by having the students in their seats. And because we thought This is a Catholic community. This is perhaps the only opportunity for many people in our area to see and get close to a pope, that they would probably take their children out of school, meaning it would be economically detrimental to the districts. We wanted to bring that to their attention, and they of course then turned to the TEA to say, hey, we have a unforeseen event happening, and would that be possible? And like you, we're waiting to hear back from the school districts at this point. Catholic schools, as you can imagine, are already going to be closed, and now we're waiting to see if that's going to be the case for the school districts in our area as well.
Okay. Well, we've run out of time. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice to see you. Thank you.
Pleasure to see you, Maria.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. Thanks for coming in. And thank you for joining us. We hope you found this informative, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.